Good evening, cadets, or I should say, good midnight. It's past midnight here, but I wanted to give you all my review of Baby Driver. It's the latest film by Edgar Wright. The only film I've seen of Edgar Wright's prior to this was Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and I saw it back in 2010 one time. But I remember that stood out to me for how visually innovative it was. And that was about as much as I knew about Edgar Wright. Aside from that, the whole Ant-Man situation, where he was on that project for a while, but he left it because he felt that Marvel was compromising his vision for that film. And what I really think was the case was Edgar Wright was making an Edgar Wright film more so than a Marvel film. And the MCU, I guess they just want to keep a consistent kind of thread throughout their movies, even if they're very different from each other. So that situation happened, and from what I know, I don't know the full in depth, but Edgar Wright leaving Ant-Man led to him writing Baby Driver and making Baby Driver. I'm not really going to disclose much about this plot because I think this is a movie that you just need to see it. Know that Baby Driver is a getaway driver. That's really all you need to know going into this. Know that it's an Edgar Wright film. Whatever that means to you, it may not mean anything. It might mean something, but there's not much else you need to know. It's got a cast that has some stars and also some smaller actors. You've got Kevin Spacey, Jamie Foxx, John Bernthal, an actress whose name escapes me right now. The actor who plays Negan from Walking Dead, which I've never watched, and then you've also got Lily James from Cinderella fame and Ansel Elgort, who I'm not familiar with his body of work. I didn't really know what to expect going into this movie, but after I began to hear a lot of great things, I became more interested. And I saw the trailer and I was like, that could be cool, but I wasn't like, I was not hyped for it. I wasn't out of my mind excited for it. It was just something that I decided I'm going to give that a shot. It looks original. It looks like it could be really cool, a fun time at the movies. And I have to say, Baby Driver for me drove past all my expectations. Pun intended there. I adored this film. I adored this film. I loved it, and I found myself surprised. I found myself feeling a full swing of emotions that I love feeling at a movie. Not that every movie has to be like Baby Driver, but for what it was such a breath of fresh air for me. And this is not a case where I'm overhyping the film or where I feel like I have to fit my opinion with the critics and the majority. Because honestly, I would have been fine if this movie had sucked. I didn't have hype for it. I didn't have hopes for it, really. It's not The Last Jedi. It's not War for the Planet of the Apes. It's not a movie that I was out of my mind hyped for. And yet, I can tell you right now, Baby Driver is my favorite film of 2017. At least until War for the Planet of the Apes comes out. But to start things off, the way the movie uses music, you just have to see it. It's so innovative. The music and the editing just combine to make something that's kind of surreal that I have not experienced in a film before. So that was fascinating to me. And also, the movie's very funny at times. I thought the humor writing was very clever. If there's a potential flaw, I think there is profanity. There's a lot of F-bombs and whatnot, and I'm not a fan of that in R-rated movies when it's done just to be edgy and to be a certain way, but I felt like with the subject matter in this film, it didn't really feel out of place, so it didn't bother me. It didn't distract too much. Maybe there could have been less, but it was not really a flaw for me. Just wanted to point that out because letting you know right now, that's the main potential negative I can think of, and that's a reach as well. But yes, also the action. The action is exhilarating. Some of the best car chases and some of the best ground chases that or foot chases I've ever seen. And what made it even cooler is that this was shot in the Metro Atlanta area, which is where I'm from and where I live. And I recognized a lot of the locations in this film. That was amazing to see. Lets you know how much work is really opening up in this area for film. So that was super cool and kind of surreal. But I'm gonna go into my biggest positive for this movie, and it's the characters, it's the cast, and the story, I guess, of course. But the cast, everyone I've mentioned, Kevin Spacey, Jamie Foxx, I thought were very entertaining in this film as the villains. The other villains in this film, I thought did a great job as well. I believed all of them, but the standouts of this movie are Ansel Elgort and Lily James. Lily James already won me over from Cinderella, and she had great chemistry in that movie with Richard Marsden. I would say her chemistry with Ansel Elgort is even better. She's amazing in this film, and you believe their connection. You believe their relationship so much it doesn't feel contrived, forced, or cheesy. It's perfectly natural, and just feels right. And so yeah, Lily James and Ansel Elgort. This guy is a discovery for me. I did not know his body of work beforehand, but his screen presence in this film evokes a young Han Solo. It evokes classic Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, Humphrey Bogart, um, Steve McQueen, James Dean, James Bond, Sean Connery, James Bond, Daniel Craig, James Bond. Um, any classic movie hero you can think of. Clint Eastwood in his old westerns, Charles Bronson. And yet it's still his own, and it feels like his own. And I cannot wait to see what he does after this. I thought, baby, they did a great job with this character, making him mysterious, making him sympathetic, making him relatable even. And yeah, not to ramble on here, but I adored this film, and it, as I've said, it's my favorite film so far this year. It gets for me. I've been trying to avoid giving 10 out of 10s, but I guess I'd have to give it, for what it is, a 10 out of 10. A 10 out of 10. Um, yeah, I'm not going to backtrack from that. It gets a 10 out of 10 for me. Let me know down below, guys. Did you see Baby Driver? If you haven't seen it, are you going to see it? Hopefully, I could convince you to. I think you should see this movie. Support this movie. People are always talking about how there's too many sequels and reboots, not enough original content. Well, if you're one of those people that's always complaining about that, then you have no excuse not to see this film. Anyway, guys, thanks as always for watching. This is Lance from Cinematic Galaxy, signing off.